Howdy banger fans, Blayne Smith welcoming you to Overkill Global, Banger TV's international heavy metal review show. I'm so happy to be back for another world tour with you. We are going to be looking at Colombian Ultra Metal. I'm gonna pick 5 albums that I think are essential. We're gonna hear from a local expert to give you that on the scenes firsthand knowledge, and make sure you stick around to the end because we're gonna hear from you, our Patreon donors. What do we know about Colombia? Well, a lot of what we know about Colombia is now wrong, because when you think of Colombia, you probably think of Medellin and you have a certain image, but in 2013 it was said that Medellin is the most innovative city in the world by the Urban Land Institute, and Medellin's crime rate has dropped so much that it's actually safer to go to than New Orleans. And because maps are dumb and bad and weird, I didn't realize how big Colombia really is. You can fit all of Texas in Colombia and still have room left over. That's a big place. So what do I know about this scene? Well, Colombian, or Medellin Ultra Metal as it's also known, is a cool little metal nugget, as well as an essential part of extreme metal's history. It's the term used to describe the early 80s and 90s music that was coming out of Colombia, or more accurately, trickling out, but mostly staying in. Well, today it might be easy to just go, oh, well, this kind of just sounds like blackened thrash or blackened death metal. It does have a unique sound, and it's not just one of those needless subcategories. And it's credited as influencing Norwegian black metal, and Norwegian black metal is pretty big, so if something was influenced it, we probably deserve to give it a little bit more spotlight. So here we go. These records are too hard to find. We need to get the word out. Finding these records was a real pain, and you don't need to know how I found them. As always, though, on this show, it's not just us talking. We love to get a local expert. We don't know everything. We can't know everything, but people there, we want them telling authentic stories. So let's toss to our expert for this episode.
In my opinion, ultra metal should be considered as a music style, but as a type of sound, like the raw form of thrash death metal that was played in Colombia, that was produced in Colombia with more accuracy in Medellin from middle to late 80s. Most musicians were self-taught, in just a few have formal music education. At that time, there was a lack of proper gear, and I mean like instruments or amplifiers. Often this equipment was made by the musicians. So I guess it was the strong desire to express through metal music, along with the extreme social conditions and the violence around the city and the country, that set the basis for the ultra metal movement. Here is my ultra metal top 5 picks. On number 5, Nemesis, Oveja Negra del Universo. On number 4, Blasfemia, Guerra Total. Number 3, Reencarnación, 888 Metal. Number 2, Astaroth, Aullido Sepulcral. And on number 1, Parabellum, Mutación por Radiación. Thanks for watching.
We're off to a very exciting start. So just a reminder, these are going to be listed chronologically. It's not a ranking, it's not a power ranking. It's also meant to be a cross-section of the scene. So if there's a band in here that is not in here, or a band in that is, there's a reason. Relax. We're just trying to do our best. So up first, we have Parabellum with Sacrilegio. It came out March 1987 at some point. Who knows the specific date? It was on Disco Fuentes. Let's have a listen now. Get into it. It's great. So Parabellum only existed from 1983 to 1988 and never released a full album. They released a rehearsal demo and 2 EPs, but they are absolutely the reason this scene exists. This is the buried treasure here. It's a record that Euronymous quoted as influencing the sound of mayhem, and if you're gonna take one thing away from this video, it's this is cool, and this band deserves to be, you know, I don't know if I'm saluting with the right hand. This is one of those amazing artifacts because it's only 2 songs, but the impact of them is very intense on you. And unlike a lot of music that sounds like this, it's not 2 songs that are 2 minutes. These tracks are long, like 8 and 6 minutes long, and a lot happens in them. So you're gonna listen to this a couple of times, even just out of curiosity to go, wait, what did they do? There's times when they're playing guitar so fast, and with the rough recording, it sounds like noise music. It almost sounds like it's bordering on war metal at times, but again, not quite war metal. It's something unique. It really has an awesome identity all its own that totally needs to be heard to believe. You absolutely must listen to this record. The sheer chaos on it is really what elevates it to such a cult status, and it does carry a very proud cult status. Most of it is a breakneck pace going on, but there is a cool, slow, melodic passage on both tracks that actually brings a ton of atmosphere and gives the vibe of someone dragging you slowly into a torture chamber, and you're like, oh no, what's gonna happen to me in here? And then the full music kicks in and everything goes absolutely nuts. You can just picture hands reaching out from behind bars to grab you, because while the record only lists Ramon as the vocalist, at least one other band member is screaming here too, if not all the band members and a couple of friends they called in, which really kind of adds to that you're in a House of Horrors vibe. Skull rating, this is the easiest one to do, no problem. 5 out of 5 skulls hanging in a dungeon. So next up, we've got Reencarnacion with Reencarnacion. It came out February 1988. I don't know if you're picking up a theme, but these things are weird. It's an independent release. Again, probably unsurprisingly. So this is another one of the core bands that would define the scene. Formed in 1986, they're actually still active today, last releasing an EP in 2018. And that's definitely one of the things that makes them stand out too, is they released albums, like full-length albums over the course of time, and this is a full length, though I have heard that it's technically more of a compilation because it is mostly the songs from their first demo, but they recorded them better and tossed some extra stuff in there. I don't know, whatever. It's coming to full album length in time, so that's where I'm going with it. Parabellum is definitely a beast all to itself. This album sounds a bit more like a Black and Thrash affair, but with some heavy punk vibes due to the kind of, shall we say, loose song structure. The compilation point mentioned early is also to explain why this record sounds so disorienting. While Parabellum's outing sounds like a House of Horrors, this sounds like accidentally taking a shot of rubbing alcohol mixed with GHB and ketamine in an unfamiliar punk squat that has a show going on a couple of doors over, but you can't quite find where that show is. Constant stop-starts, tempo changes, and a less evil, more F you man vibe to the vocals make up most of the record, except for Puta Religion, which is a weird imitation of church, but a church where communion was a shot of rubbing alcohol with GHB and ketamine mixed in. This, I'm gonna say, is more interesting curiosity than essential listening, but still definitely a cool piece of metal history. That's why I'm giving it a skull rating of 3 out of 5 skulls in shots of rubbing alcohol with GHB and ketamine mixed in. Up next, we've got Athanator with Engendros de Muerte. It was an independent release in 1992, and that's all the information I have there for you. But I do have some music for you, so ignore that I don't have any more specific dates and listen to a tune. Athanator was one of the early bands that showed up a little late to the scene, forming in 1989. They're another band that's actually still together today. They released an album last year, and while they do have 7 full-length albums under their belt, I chose to pick this early EP because it's one of the first times in the scene where if you put this on and a stranger was walking by, they might go, "Oh, you're listening to music." The record does have a bit more of a death meets thrash vibe to it with more conventional, songs. But it definitely still has that insanity bubbling under the surface. They still do whatever the hell they want with tempos. There's a bass forward section where it kind of feels like maybe they just turned down the volume on the guitars, and it really makes me smile. Like, I love that they did that, and it's great. Solos are another section where they're just weird and out there. They have 2 guitars, so I don't know, one's going ham and the other's a violin in the background. It sounds weird, but again, weird, smile weird. Not weird, weird. Unlike the other records, we actually have some catchy riffs going on, and it does feel a lot more like someone sat down, wrote a song, practiced the song, and then decided to record the song. So I would mark this as probably the best entry point if you want to dip your toe into the water of what's going on here, but still have some of that kind of original, in the period, authentic feel. And that's why I give it 4 out of 5 skulls that are a little more normal than the skulls we've seen so far. The next band is Ramon, or R.A.M.O.N. I've seen it both ways to continue with the weirdness of this stuff. With Contundente Final, it came out in 2012. It was an independent release, and as such, I know it came out in 2012, and that's all I've got.
Esta vida en cuestión, producto de carnicería, donde los dioses juegan a las escondidas con estatuas vivas.
So while the scene was definitely more of a snapshot of a crazy period in time, that doesn't mean that the people who made that music just went away. A lot of the guys who created that scene are still keeping the fire burning. Enter Ramon, formed in 2006. They'd released 2 albums, break up, but apparently got back together in 2014 and are still together. They are named after Ramon, who was the vocalist in Parabellum, who we talked about earlier. So, again, I'm sure you're not surprised that this scene is small and shares a lot of members between bands. A lot of what made that Parabellum record great is on display here. Ramon is still one of the craziest vocalists I've ever heard. He sings with so much aggression and passion that it compels you to like it. A man is trying this hard for you. You can't really disrespect this in any way. It compels you to listen to the record again, and again, and again. While he is the only vocalist listed, again, there's gotta be some other guys shouting in from around the bend, because there's constantly shouting over top of each other. I can clearly hear 2 different people's voices, so unless listening to this music has made me go crazy, there's a lot of chaos going on with the vocals. But again, it sounds really good, and it's now a lot less chaos for chaos sake than it was in the early days. Songs are definitely more conventional in structure now. We've got a chorus in the middle, maybe a solo, maybe a chorus that pulls things out, but again, the vocals are weird, and that solo is also going to be weird. If you like your solos like a screechy power tool party, you're at home here. The tempo changes are still here, but due to the high quality of Martin Naranjo's drumming, they're less jarring. He's both a technical drummer and can also toss in a cool vibe when things slow down, like on the track Contundente Final. I'm trying with these pronunciations. I'm sorry. It's still definitely weird. They're just sort of keeping the weird concealed a bit, like finding a butt plug in your parents' drawer. Who's it for? Is it for your mom? Is it for your dad? Which one makes you more uncomfortable? Rating, easy, 4.5 out of 5 skulls for me. The skulls are gonna be butt plugs. You knew they were gonna be butt plugs. And thus we bring ourselves almost up to current day with our final album on the list, Nekromantie, Holocausto de Guerra. It came out in 2017. Yes, the pattern continues on La Pija Producción. So to bring us up to today is a band of very much not from today. Nekromantie was one of the original ultra metal bands, forming in 1985, breaking up in 1988, only to reform in 2016 and release this album in 2017 and another in April of 2021. That's crazy. I considered featuring that one, but due to some, we'll just refer to them as interesting decisions with the vocals, that while they are very ultra metal in spirit, these ones are a little more good. And I do really like the vocals here. Lots of blahs and the like to add character, and a great black and thrash bark with a Colombian accent singing Spanish lyrics is always gonna make me happy. Another thing I love here is how much they love solos. Like a friend who orders a quadruple pepperoni pizza, start a song with a solo. That's weird. I mean, I understand ending a song with a solo, but hey, they're gonna do it both ways. And even a slower song with a more thrashy hardcore vibe like Vlad El Emperador ends with a minute of soloing. It gets slow and wandery and strange and just, you know, this is ultra metal, baby. If I had a complaint, it would be that I'd like a bit more of that ultra metal weirdness in here, but it seems like they funneled all that weirdness into the vocals on the next record. So maybe we just quit while we're ahead and give it a solid 4 out of 5 skulls with extra pep, double extra pep, put peps all over that bad boy, and move on. I think what this really shows here is that while we always hear about the big bands influencing the big bands and the big scenes tend to be, you know, up in the northern part with us, there's a total global metal movement that's been going on since long before the internet existed, and everything's connected, and something happening in Medellin, it can influence something happening a couple of years in Norway. Borders don't matter, boundaries don't matter, just metal matters, baby. While I won't say Colombian Ultra Metal created black metal, I will say it certainly had a hand in black metal being created, and it deserves a proper tip of the hat and that acknowledgement. You know who also deserves acknowledgement? Some bands and some Patreon donors who, like I said, these are the bands that you, our Patreon donors, think we should talk about that maybe I didn't get to talk about because there was actually a lot of bands doing this. So Abelardo Mayoral says, from Medellin, Colombia, Massacre, of course. From YouTube, Dare Tottersking says Massacre from Colombia are sick. Fear Crusher says Colombia Inquisition. So just thanks to you guys for your comments. We still have a comment section though. More comments are gonna come in. What did we miss? Who are your favorite bands from the scene? Are you a local? What was that time like? It sounds absolutely nuts. We'd love to hear your stories. And you know, I'll be down in the mix, down in the comment mosh pit. Thanks for coming out. Thanks for watching. Thanks for commenting. Thanks for liking it. Thanks for supporting us on Patreon. We love you, and we'll be back with more.